All right, folks, welcome back to more World Cup action, this time of the Game of Thrones variant. We have USA versus UK for the fourth round. Winner of this will advance to face Germany in King of Swiss round. And we have Alejandro versus Ryan Wood. Uh, Alejandro's playing Targ, Valyrian Steel, and we have Builders, Night's Watch, Kings of Summer for Ryan. I see. The timer starts after setup. Okay. Hello? Hey, what's up?
Not much.
All right,
So,
so joined by Eric Swanson, also of Team USA. Unfortunately, none of the UK team members want to commentate the games, so we're getting a truly non-biased casting here. Uh, After setups here, both players have reasonably good setups. Builders unfortunately draws their one copy of Gates, but at least they have it on setup instead of actually drawing it. And then we have Hisdar with I think Tokar, yeah, Tokar and a econ setup for Alejandro.
okay, I seem to be lagging a bit. Alright, let me bring up the actual deck list so I'm actually informative when I talk about all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. We see Time of Plenty, mostly being played because it's a summer plot. And then we have Lone being opened. You don't normally see Lone being like your first plot, right? From when I've seen it being played, it's usually like in towards the mid game, but I could be wrong.
You usually do not like to open it, but in this case, I think Alejandro recognizes that he has to win this game quickly. The longer this game goes on, the more Builders does Builders things and grinds out the match. And I suspect if he opens Lone, then he likes what he's in his hand, and he thinks he can get spend a lot of money to get a very fast start.
So unlike the other Targ Valyrian Steel lists we've seen, mostly played against CT, Alejandro does not have any copies of Shadow of the East,
Mm-hmm.
which is very key for this matchup and kind of what we saw CT struggle against in what both his matches. But we'll see
Yeah,
if
the
he's
lack
able
of
to.
Shadow of the East is a surprise. I do remember that we did a substantial redesign to the Targ Valerian Steel right before we submitted deck lists. Like, more than any other deck on Team USA, that one was kind of a product of some last minute changes. And I think something we've noticed during the Swiss rounds is that this deck really does want Shadow of the East, because Shadow of the East is consistently been one of the cards that we're like very frustrated to play against
Yeah, yeah,
in all of our matchups.
for
So I
sure.
don't know exactly what cards we would cut from it to find Shadow of the East, but I think it is a weakness of the deck that it doesn't have it.
You guys did make the cut, and so based on when I release the updated list, if you guys feel that you want to play Targ Steel again, you'll get the opportunity to redesign it.
Yes, yes. I suspect, given that Targ Steel seems to be one of the better lists at the moment, I feel somewhat confident that we would stick with Targ Steel even if it loses a card or two. But
yeah. So
we also have a lot of people who love to play Burn on the team, so maybe that would just give them the excuse.
Targ Steel, Night's Watch, or Martel Wolf, and Builders are the three outlier decks at the moment in terms of win percentage of the tournament.
Sorry, Targ Steel, Night's Watch, Builders, and what was the third one?
Martel Wolf. Martel Wolf's like almost 60% win rate.
Yeah, I can. Not surprised by
Which
that.
is funny because everyone's commenting on Wars. Wars is actually about a 50% win rate deck, whereas it's really Wolf that's been doing the heavy lifting for Martel.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of curious. I guess looking at some of the other Martel Wars decks, I've seen some odd choices. For example, looking at the Martel Wars deck that's being played right now by Team UK, like you look at a lot of the cards in there, and it's an attrition deck played out of Wars rather than your classic Wars kind of rush-oriented deck. So we were somewhat surprised, like when we were looking at that deck, like it seems to be trying to do two things at once.
Do you think it's just been this is kind of a product of Wars having been restricted for so long that not a lot of people are really know the true like direction to take the deck in?
I think that it really is part of it, that a lot of these archetypes are sort of solved archetypes. Like everyone knows how to play Targ Steel, everyone knows how to play Builders, but with Martel Wars having been out of the meta for a while, it like while it has a very high ceiling, it's not necessarily a high ceiling that every team is going to find right off the bat.
That's fair. So we have Builders playing out Underground Vault for their econ, and then we have Double Age Craftsman. First one found Castle Black, which then finds a Haunted Forest. So I mean, you kind of have you have the first line of defense already set up for the Builders player, right? You have the wall, a stronghold, Castle Black, and a Haunted Forest.
Yeah, that is a very strong set of locations going out there. About the one thing that Tark still is going for them is that Drogon is the single best card they've got against
Absolutely against
builders. So
Builders.
Drogon can just go in there and keep killing the builders, and if he can kill them faster than
The
the
Night's Watch can
builders
deploy
can
them.
start putting out more bodies, they can retain control because builder needs both its big old line of locations and its big old line of builders.
Yeah, Abandoned Stronghold loses a lot of luster when you don't have that many builders in play.
Exactly.
There's no negative attachments yet onto Hisdar, which is good, right? So we'll get hopefully get a turn of Hisdar's econ.
Yes, though there's still time for another one to come out. I wouldn't be surprised if the last thing here is a milk or.
Nope, it looks like it's a practice blade.
Okay. I guess milk is what you really want to put on Hisdar as a body, even as a strength 7 body. He's not particularly dangerous to builders right now. Like the worst thing he's going to do is, okay, he'll win an intrigue challenge that looks like they were going to lose anyway.
Why is this veteran builder strength 6? It's practice blades +1. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so strength 6 there is bad given that he's got 10 strength now with a abandoned stronghold. So Alejandro's got 4 gold there, though. So I think that
Are we gonna see a gifts for the widow here?
he's definitely got options to get over that builder.
Oh, okay. He has Aegon instead. I forgot. I didn't notice the 2 cards in shadows. So what is the other one? Is it a Queen's Guard maybe? I'm trying to look at the cards that could be in shadows here.
Queensguard or Dragon Skull.
Oh, right. That card does have shadows. You have shadow too.
Yeah, like Queensguard, it's a card that has shadows where the shadows doesn't really do anything. It
Yeah.
basically means you can set it up in shadows and get like just set it up and when you don't have an optimal target for it on setup, which is nice but not really great use of the shadows mechanic.
So you probably do intrigue first with Masande, and then you can stand her with Dario on your military.
Yeah. Or you I guess, do we have Dolores Ed is how he could defend the intrigue
Oh,
challenge
true.
still. So I could see him doing something different because Ed could do.
Well, you could do Masande plus his Dar if you wanted to just win the intrigue. We do
And that
see a
still lets
Gustavo though.
you.
And then
Yeah, and that
his Dar has a breaker of chains on him, so that would trigger, right?
breaker of change is triggered by him attacking.
Yeah. So I'm saying if you do the attack with him and Masande, you then can trigger breaker of chains, and you also get to get your intrigue through, even through Ed.
Yes, but with serious training
Training.
coming down on his Dar, I think we're seeing
Yeah, we're just
a
going for the big military
huge.
here.
Yeah.
And then he does have a breaker of chains target. That's pretty awesome.
He is definitely going very wide here, but forcing the Valor de Harris, which I assume is the Builder's Reset. Yeah, that's the Builder's Reset. Early is good.
Right, because then you can just commit to the board without repercussion. Going to try and win before the plot deck resets.
So now I'm kind of wondering here. I haven't mathed out the exact military challenge, but he had 6, 10, 11, 13 that he needed to get over. So yeah, he really did need to send both like a lot to win this military challenge. Question is that he didn't actually need to send Dario, I don't think.
650. Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
And it's not like the renown matters, right? Because Dario's gonna go back.
yeah, Dario's gonna head back to hand.
But he's left some. Yeah, because well, Dario couldn't defend, I guess. I'm trying to think of why he would.
So the reason to keep Dario back is just to have him available for the intrigue challenge, to have extra strength there in
Oh,
case there was
sure,
an
against
Ed in
potential Ed.
hand.
Right, because Ed is strength of 2 by himself, or is it?
3.
Oh,
He's a
he's a
strength
3.
3
Okay,
plus
so
1
then
for
with
the wall,
wall is 4.
and I don't think we're gonna see we didn't see Castle Black or Abandoned Stronghold used here, so he's got a lot of strength to theoretically pump Ed with.
Yeah, he'd have 4, and then Castle Black would put him to 6 plus 2 from Abandoned Stronghold, so he could go to 8. So Alejandro sends
So
both, which is interesting. So it looks like he's playing around Ed, but also not fully.
I mean, he's playing around Ed as much as he can actually play around Ed, and he doesn't have Ed,
That's fair.
so it works out.
Yep. So Neil's out the
Basically,
wall.
yeah. Though, given that I don't think he was going to send a power challenge anyway, sending 2 characters there was also kind of irrelevant because either Abandoned Stronghold or Castle Black would have been able to defend
True.
that
Yeah, would
intrigue
have
challenge
beaten the 5.
if Ed was there. Or rather,
Discards Iron Throne.
given that this power challenge here doesn't matter too much. Actually, I'm surprised he's sending this power challenge because the builders can defend it without kneeling anybody effectively.
Right, and then the Builders player gets their 2 unopposed plus.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we'll push Dom here.
Oh, actually, it makes sense why he sent both characters for intrigue because he got to draw a card from Doria granting Aegon insight.
Oh, right. Okay. There you go. We found the reason.
That said, I still don't understand the power challenge.
Who are we killing here? Oh, looks like it's Doria.
Doria makes sense.
She's a singleton, right?
Yeah, she's a singleton. She's basically there as an efficient body with 2 icons. Who occasionally will give you a card.
And then we'll see unopposed in the power 1 here by this Age Craftsman. So builders will go up to 3. You know, builders having power on their card isn't the worst thing in the early game, right? It gives you something to actually take.
Yeah.
But you know, giving builders 3 free power in quotation marks, especially in a turn where you kneel out the wall, definitely feels bad.
Yeah, but given what the Targ player seems to have had in hand, I think he's going for aggressive. Like he's just going to try to kill all the builder characters and hope that the builders don't see a lot of bodies going forward. Because if he can just keep the number of builders down, and 3 cards in hand at the end of this turn is not a great position for the builders to be in.
If
Especially given that some of those cards might not be characters or might not be draw. So I guess it depends on how much draw the builders see
before you
and how
burn
much
their board
bodies they
down.
get from it. Because they have exchange of information and they have
Watch has
time
need.
of plenty as their kind of sort of draw. And each one of those gets you, like, time of plenty still only gives you 1 character, or exchange gives you 1 character, time of plenty gives you 1 extra card.
Well, they have watch has need for draw.
Yes, so I think a lot of it now depends on if they can get a good watch has needs off.
So we see Calm flipped into at the gates.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's trying to slow his builder death, and Alejandro is trying to get a bit of, I was gonna say, get a bit of long-term economy going. But grabbing a King's Road means I think he's got some big stuff that he wants to put down again. Well, we know he has Dario, so this lets him play out Dario.
Would you commit Dario to this board in the face of Valor del Harris?
I mean, at this point, I think you're just trying to force the Valor del Harris next turn.
Okay.
Um,
So we see his Dar discards Gates of the Moon to then Marshal Dario, and then has a Merc contract. That's pretty sweet. Is he gonna Merc contract on his opponent's character to steal it?
you would, except that
Oh wait, the builders all have
one that
that
combo is restricted because bribery is restricted.
No, I meant you could take
The-
them with Dario too, right?
yes,
For
but
the
yes, it doesn't work. The only thing, like everybody, is no attachments in
yeah.
that deck.
I always forget
With
about that.
very few exceptions.
Well, we have Dario as a Tricon now with this noble lineage coming down.
That's nice.
His Dar is enormous right now with Tokar plus Breaker of Chains. He is so big, and the Mercenary contract went on to him because he has the Tokar. Here is the watch has need though. With a reserve of 7, we're gonna look at 7 for builder. Like this is like I think if builders hits 2 or less here, you feel really good as Alejandro.
And
But
they hit
it looks like they hit 3, which I think
3.
is probably I bet you the average is somewhere like with between 2 and 3 in terms of hits.
For that number, yeah, I think 3 to 4 actually. I mean, the deck has
The deck had
27 characters and
and it had 41 cards when you played it.
6 of, they have 21 builders, so you'd expect 1 and 3 to hit. So 3 off of 7 is actually, yeah, a little bit
Yeah,
above
slightly.
average.
Yeah, I think the average is like 2.5 or something, like
Mm-hmm.
2.4 or something. So I mean, it wasn't like a 4 or 5 builder hit, right? Like that was would have been what you don't want to see.
Yeah, that would have been kind of backbreaking, but still, like, it's enough, I think, especially given that he can put out builders who are outside of Drogon range.
Yeah, the wall making Castle Black Mason out of Drogon range is really big.
Mm-hmm. So he can, like, win the military challenge still, and Drogon a aged craftsman that the builders don't even care about at all.
You'd probably just kill the reducer at this point, right? Because killing
Yeah.
the reducer is econ
Yes.
plus on a Dahira's turn, it's less for them to keep.
Yeah.
And
But
then we see
still,
a
you're
Craven
killing a
on.
strength 2 monocon. Like, you're not getting a lot of value out of winning that military challenge with Drogon here.
Yeah, for sure.
And there goes the Craven down on his Dar, so all of his massive strength does not really matter here.
And then Eastwatch Carpenter ready to give econ to the watch player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My impression looking at this matchup is that it's really bad for Targaryen because they want to build up a Voltron, and the builders have 3 cards that just say, "Oh, that 12 gold worth of stuff you've got there doesn't get to attack me ever."
3 cards.
So
It's Craven. What else?
the 3 copies of Craven.
Oh, sure. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So
Obviously, Shadow of the East makes things different.
Shadows of the East, I think that like Shadows of the East has some really good matchups, and then some matchups where it's a dead card. And I think we didn't put it in here, which kind of makes this matchup an auto loss instead of, if you had Shadow of the East here, then you're still in okay shape. You can still actually fight.
Yeah, especially against the summer variants, because they are flipping summer pots for your Shadow of the East. It's really awkward. I know
Yeah.
when CT was talking about playing against he played against basically 2 of the exact same deck, and both of those decks had Political Disaster and Shadow of the East.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty insane that he was able to win one of those.
Yeah, I recall him saying that the only reason he managed to win is that the guy decided to use 2 copies of Shadow of the East on a turn where there was no summer plot.
Yeah, that's what I remember. And so we'll see if Alejandro can chip through here. I just don't think he has the ability to gain enough power fast enough.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's 3-0, and I don't really see how he is gonna grind out power here. Like, this is definitely a pretty bad matchup.
Yeah. The way the decks are configured, I would agree for sure.
So an update for people who are watching this match, rather than the other match that's going on at the same time, which is Colt Humbert playing Lannister, Banner of the Kraken, and I forget the UK player playing Martell Wars,
Bamford.
Bamford. It is 8-2 on plot 5. Both players have giant lines of locations. I should say 8-2 Martell Wars on plot 5. Both players seem to have all the locations they could want for this matchup out on the board right now. The Martell player has a lot of smaller characters, while the Lannister player has a couple of mid-sized characters in Cersei out, and a decent chunk of stuff in Shadows and a ton of gold.
I mean, Cersei and gold is definitely a way for Lannister to gain a lot of power.
Yeah, so that's definitely a sorry, that's a Shadows Cersei.
Okay,
So
okay, not the
more that
discard
it's a
one.
way for him to just destroy the hand of the
Martell player.
Martell player. But if I recall looking at that deck, we identified that deck as having a massive amount of draw, and not and insufficient econ, and the best way to attack it was kind of trying to attack the econ. It looks like the Martell player has their econ firmly established. There are 5 limited econ locations plus water gardens out for him.
Yeah, for sure. We see
That
Isle
said,
of Ravens. So during this game, real quick, so very uneventful turn. The wall got an elf for power. Isle of Ravens shuffle back the watch as need, and then we had Castle Black Mason used in Dom to get another Craven.
yeah, and I think that's a sign that this game is fairly well locked for the builders.
You just Craven Dario and call it a day.
Yeah, like on plot 2, he couldn't get a Drogon trigger out. That probably tells you all you need to know.
Yeah.
It's not going to get better from him for the Targaryen player from
Eastwatch
here.
Carpenter is going to generate what, like 1, 2, 3, 4 extra gold also.
Yeah.
Let's see. So his dog gets March because he was Cravened. Makes sense.
He
Frees
can
up those
replay all those attachments now to draw cards and
Yeah.
find new stuff.
And then exchange is going to give. Looks like it's going to be a copy of Lay Waste for as the event. A milk duplicate Isle of Ravens and another Eastwatch Carpenter. Oh, I'm sorry. It gains 3 gold because Eastwatch Carpenter counts only Night's Watch locations. We have an Underground Vault get marshaled. Yeah, I mean, I don't like saying games are over, but I definitely feel like this is not a game that is we'll say easily winnable. Like I think we're reaching like 99% locked up territory.
Yeah, like for
Yeah, there's Halder really not winning a challenge now.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing that people hate about builders is that it's like it was like a 90%, 95% win probability on turn 2. It's like 99% now, and it'll still take another 8 turns to actually win the game.
To actually kill you, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because like the most power he's going to gain is 3 per turn.
I've been working on the update for the restricted list just as like from the mini mic or the micro meta, and I mean, I was trying to find ways to help like figure out how to like diversify Night's Watch. The problem that we found is that Night's Watch is just a really terribly designed faction.
Yeah, it's
Like
FFG. There's not like the cards that are good for some sub themes like stealing are either way too good or just not very good, and some factions just don't have the right card balance, and like you really just have to errata a couple of cards to let like multiple archetypes actually work. Like I was kind of having the same look at Tyrell, which is that they've got a lot of good themes, but most of them have like one too many cards from them restricted because they cross the boundary into broken.
yeah.
So
Also,
now it's like, what are you left with? Well, mid range and rush, which is and
I
when
do
your
have
mid
some
range loses to everyone else's mid range.
I do have some update. I do have one update. Two updates to the restricted list that will help Tyrell. One of them. Well, one big one is I will be moving trade routes back to restricted off the ban list, which I think will help a lot of factions diversify a little bit more.
Hmm.
obviously helps Tyrell. There was like 7 or 8 Tyrell decks that didn't take a restricted card.
Yeah, that just gives a good option to Tyrell.
And I think obviously the card is still insane, but also we're seeing a lot of political disaster right now, and I think the factions that can use trade routes the best are currently doing the worst, or doing not as well as they as I would like to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean Tyrell has had let's see, what are the Tyrell archetypes? You've got
So it's like mid
the
range,
Reigns mid range, which the Tyrell big characters are just not quite as good as the big characters in several other factions. So you kind of have to draw or econ your way past that, which at sometimes they've been able to do. But at this point, like Greyjoy, for example, just has such better big characters that they kind of tend to win the big character battle 3 out of 4 times, all other things equal.
Germany is playing Tyrell Wars,
I mean, that's, I
which is
assume, a
which is
mid-range
interesting.
deck.
Yeah, it is. I'm just saying that they chose to give Tyrell their wars list as opposed to um and as opposed to like running like Reigns or something. Like,
Yeah, I mean, if you weren't planning to play Martell Wars, which is the other kind of go-to place to stick wars, like if you were happy with a different Martell list and you thought that your second best deck was not also Martell, like for Team USA, we ended up going with 2 Martell lists because we thought that both Wolf and Wars were excellent decks, and we thought that Wars was better than any other faction's second deck by a good bit.
we're looking. Okay, so looking through the list, there's a lot of white book. There's some mid range, and then mid range is split between Reigns and Wars, and then there's a couple crossing lists. But I feel like giving crossing to Tyrell is maybe less percentage than giving it to a different faction.
Yeah, like Tyrell has good crossing lists, but as you said, like there are other factions that get more out of it. Stark Crossing is just very, very good and also substantially better than the next best Stark list.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the diversity that we saw in terms of like factions and agendas. However, in the shortcoming of that restriction is that you see a little bit more ubiquity in what teams bring as a whole.
Hmm. Yeah, I did definitely like the deck building restriction of 1 agenda per team because it meant that otherwise, like it's very likely you'd have seen like 4 crossing lists in a team
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of the
exactly.
time. Like I bet that if
You would have seen multiple Valyrian Steel lists. Like it would have basically forced me to. Obviously, I couldn't have unrestricted wars, and then also, you wouldn't like. I probably would have had to have restricted Valyrian Steel.
yeah, I could see that being like a different way to approach it, but I like the 1 agenda restriction. It was definitely fun to deck build with that restriction. It made us like look into sort of second tier agendas and like see what the more kind of creative stuff we could come up with was. Also, having Sea of Blood banned opens up a
I
wide
mean, I
range
mean, it
of
just opens up like
possibilities that just
so
weren't
many
possible.
decks that were basically unplayable because they couldn't defend a turn one Sea Blood trigger, right? Like, I mean, Targ Steel was one of those decks that I saw last year in the cut just get absolutely murdered by Targ Sea Blood or like Night's Watch Sea Blood. Like, it's just pretty tough. So Ryan wins the Intrigue Challenge with just defending both Hob and the Haunted Forest. We'll see a Power Challenge that will be defended very easily. And then we'll see a bunch of Halder triggers and Abandoned Stronghold to defend the military. Probably just defend with the Carpenter here. Your opponent has no gold, so it's a pretty free defense. Sure, defense with Halder and the Haunted Forest, that works too.
Mhm. And hey, you might be able to roast Halder or Hob here.
Yeah, that's
I
like
mean, there's not
the dream, right?
too many shenanigans.
I mean, 17 defends for 12, 13. Castleback is 15. I mean, you could just defend with Castle Black plus Halder triggers. You don't even need to use your Abandoned Stronghold.
Yeah.
like just
Hey, builder
counting
math.
on board, like just Halder plus Castleback is way more than enough. And like the Abandoned Stronghold is 5 by itself. I like just 0% chance that you burn anything here.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we're just seeing Halder triggers. Unfortunately, playing Halder online is a lot harder than it is in paper.
Yeah.
And there we go. Ryan wins 19-7. And then Ryan's also gonna win dumb.
Yeah. Alejandro really doesn't have an out here, and I'm actually not sure what. I didn't do any testing with him this week, but I remember we looked at the matchup and thought it was going to be uphill at best
I just don't
initially.
know anything in his deck that can win him, that can like actually win him out of this position.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have
And that's
political.
the
He doesn't have political disaster. He doesn't have Shadow of the East. He doesn't have any way to punch like to gain more strength than builders can output.
hmm
Like
And that's the weird thing about builders in this meta is that because it is at most like a 1 in 9 chance of hitting it, teching any one deck to beat it is probably not worth it. But on the other hand, that does kind of mean that one person every round is just going to end up against builders and be really sad.
yeah, I mean you're just gonna get like builders has the highest win percentage out of any deck in this tournament, at a staggering 80% win rate.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. Is that in a environment where you can't afford to tech against it, it's just gonna
It's
it just
feasting basically.
yeah. And so yeah, I could definitely see you like trying to take a piece away from builders, but I don't know builders enough to
Yeah, the
say
hard part,
what
the
like
hard
the
part
better
about
pieces
builders,
to do would
about
be.
hitting builders, and then also not hitting any potential other Night's Watch deck, is the strongest cards in builders were cards that would go into other Night's Watch decks. So like
Yeah, so
Night's
it'd have
Watch
to be
Steel, for
cards that aren't
instance.
like broken. So like Abandoned Stronghold isn't going to be used in any other deck. It's not a broken card, but it's also a card that's like only played in builders.
Well,
So
the thing is, builders doesn't like builders restricted card right now is currently a it's mostly a luxury card in terms of what you want to play. Like we see some copies of Yorin in some of them, and then some of them are playing Return of the Fields.
hmm
It's not like you need these cards for your deck, right? Like that's so like if I was gonna hit builders, I would just put a card on the restricted list to make them lose their luxury slot, basically. Where
yeah.
I can't actually affect this deck, but I can at least make you not get extra tools for free. Like obviously I could force everyone to not play builders by just restricting multiple cards from the deck and making the deck unplayable, but I don't see that as a great way to balance, right? Like I feel like that would take away my
It,
credibility at creating this meta.
I mean, yes, you could just say I ban builders, don't build builders by
No,
restricting like 3 of their
I mean I
pieces.
could do that, or I could just literally
But
say I ban the core wall, like fuck you builders.
I mean, yeah, like you could just ban like Abandoned Stronghold and Haunted Forest and Castle Black Mason or something, and then the deck wouldn't work anymore. But
Yeah, yeah.
that that the wall is still a useful card, like in other Night's Watch archetypes. Like I've seen a lot of
It
like
gets
the
played in
+1
Void and
strength
Steel,
boost
right?
is just nice in some other archetypes, and it gives an alternate win condition to some kind of more mid-range decks.
So Alejandro flips to Hyris now to kind of clear out his attachments again.
hmm
But I mean, this is just like look at the character. Builders got to keep Halder, Hob, and Castle Black Mason, and a reducer.
Yes, there's a reason that Builders just loves Doharis. Like it
It's
can
just
keep
super easy for them to piece
everything it
together
wants.
the full 10.
hmm
Quick update from Colt's game. Looks like Colt is now down 3-12, but there's only 17 cards left in the Martel deck. On plot, let's see. So this will be plot 6. No, 5. Yeah, plot 5.
That said, like Colt's playing a Shadows deck. Like if there's any deck that is built to grind out a win in this situation, it's his deck. So he's definitely not out of it.
It looks like
Um,
all 3 copies of Doran's game were hit.
yes, that's what I was like. I thought I'd seen several copies get hit, but like since I can't open up the discard pile to check for sure, that is a big deal. Like I had noticed that Colt was like doing his best to try to hit that with hit the 1 cost with like Marauders for a while to try to eliminate that source of power gain.
And then we saw a Hand's Judgment on a Clever Feint, and then we saw a second one. So, definitely options there for Colt. In this game we have another copy of his Dar come down, but then we have another Practice Blade onto an Eastwatch Carpenter, and then we have the uh often maligned this what is it, Recruit from the Dungeons, where as long as you have gold, you will keep the wall standing. Oh, there's 3 copies of Abandoned Stronghold in play also. I would probably concede here against 3 copies of Abandoned Stronghold.
I mean, I might have conceded a turn or two ago.
Sure, sure.
I conceded my game today when I was technically up like 7-3. Like I recognized that I had no outs at that point with not being able to ever get a.
Well, you were both playing Voltron decks, right? And their Voltron gets bigger than yours.
Yeah, their Voltron got bigger than mine, and I think
I think they killed one of your Queen's
they
Guards
could
with Shadow of the
they'd
East.
taken out 2 of my copies of Queen's Guard. So even if I found the third, I think that so yes, even if I found the third, he could just match me challenge for challenge because his Voltron was strength 13 and mine could be like a max of 9 because I'd lost the Crown of Golden Roses.
Yeah.
But the thought process behind our Tyrell deck is that given that Tyrell is generally pretty darn vulnerable to attrition decks, and we figured that we might and gonna lose on average to mid-range decks, we just decided to play all-out rush with a really high ceiling and hope to steal a few games because we drew really well and the opponent didn't draw very well.
For sure. Yeah, that was kind of what you were saying, and why I think some of the changes I make to the list will maybe open up Tyrell deck building.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, at least.
I've been testing a bit of Tyrell in the Conclave meta where Unexpected Guile is still just restricted, not banned. And
yeah, that card
I
was considering unrestricting that card or putting that card back to restricted, and that card is just a little bit too much.
I can definitely agree with that. Like Guile, like when Guile, it has such a ridiculous ceiling comboed with a couple of cards out there. Like,
well, also in
comboing
this
it with
meta, I have Hightower free, right? And I think Hightower plus Guile would also be pretty insane.
not particularly. Like Guile is just Shadows cards. I'm not sure if Hightower.
Oh,
ever
right, you
makes
have
it
to
into
have Shadows, right?
decks.
So like, you can't put it on a character that has ambush. Yeah, right, because it returns them both to Shadows.
I mean, like, yeah, it could work, but like Shadows never ran Hightower. It, like, given that Shadows always preferred like trade routes over Hightower, shows you how much they felt like they needed the extra draw.
Yeah, for sure.
Like Hightower is a problem card only when combined with Mace. Like in any other circumstance, it's perfectly fair. And like if you like slapped a max 2 per round on Mace, then you could unrestrict both, honestly, and give Tyrell an archetype back.
Yeah, obviously I would prefer to errata things, but in this micro meta, I chose to not do any erratas as
absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
it's not
trying
something
to errata is
like I think
tough
errata
unless you have
is a way to balance if you are going to maintain it and it is going to be followed, right? Like if everyone is going to be following it, then it's fine, right? But for something I knew was not going to be a permanent meta, I didn't want people to have to figure out, what cards we're supposed to actually do.
exactly. Like errata is an option for the conclave where they can make everybody agree with it and they have the standing in the community to make that kind of decision. But to try to do erratas for this meta, just, yeah, I absolutely agree, is not worth it.
I mean, I was surprised at how well the ban list went through. Although I'm pretty sure a lot of people were just happy to see some of the cards that they've just hated playing against for 2 years like go away.
Yes, like they're putting several of those cards on the ban list just changes the meta up enough. So like I remember it was so much fun testing for the first time in forever because it's like, oh, like so many like kind of things that have just were good but completely forced out of the meta by either Shadows or Targ Sea of Blood are suddenly like interesting to play again. And there was like so much deck building space to explore because of the bans. And my impression, kind of listening to the conclave discussion on bans, is that they didn't do it initially because like they just didn't feel like they had asked the community and confirmed with the community that the community was okay with bans. And I think the player survey is probably telling them that the community is happy with some bans. So I expect to see the conclave issue a number of bans the next time they put together a restricted list.
Yeah, I mean, another reason that because like this event technically could have been under the conclave thing, it that came out before this thing came out. But realistically, I wanted to run it this way to provide data also, because
Yes.
I knew the conclave you need competitive data to make big changes, and so if I make the big changes in a micro tournament, you at least have some amount of data to make informed decisions. And when it comes to balance, you really want to make as informed of a decision as you can when you attack certain archetypes that need to be brought down.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that this is getting really good data on the value of banning a couple of cards.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, it's really funny. One of the things that I got caught the most slack for was that Wyman plus Miro was allowed to happen again, and Stark is sitting at a 47% win rate.
I'm trying to figure out why that is, because in our testing, Stark Crossing just jumped out as one of the, oh god, this deck is gross. And maybe it's because I was playing a deck where Mira just
Miro
ended
just
me if they
hosed you
saw it.
so hard, right?
And it
Yeah.
seemed to me that, like, a lot of decks that relied on their characters were just going to get completely hosed by Mira. But I guess at this point I'm open to being convinced that Mira Wyman is fair, but I'm also kind of curious to see the full tournament data on it. If
Yeah,
maybe we
we
have
do
a
have
weird sample size, or we like maybe they Stark just had a lot of bad matchups, or
we have two more rounds, and also I even with this amount of data, I do have a potential change coming for Stark that will not make them, because obviously in a situation like this, I don't want to stop